it's just really important right now when we talk about, conscious leadership. It's just kind of like getting quiet and setting intentions. That's where I'm at. I'm just kind of like, and I want to talk about your post, but that's kind of where I'm kind of going, is like, what is it that I need and want over the next few months?
Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Podcast, the Legacy Edition, where conscious leaders unite to unlock their highest potential so collectively we can change the way the game is being played. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Podcast, changing the way this game is being played. And Tracey and I are back this week, just she and I, ready to riff on our conscious leadership practices that are showing up on this play right about now here in September. As we're sending these kids back to school, we're bringing our people back right into our locker rooms in terms of really setting them up and priming them for Q4. And yeah, I'm loving talking about what is going on this time of year in terms of the intensity we all feel in our nervous systems with this type of kind of contrasting experience from summer to fall, because it's such a powerful metaphor for everything you and I have been talking about this summer on the pod, right? Which is preparing for the winds of change that we all feel in the air right now, in terms of, just like the disruption, right? We got future generations coming up our backside that are compelling us to become conscious leaders. We've got AI that's coming, that's opening us up to all kinds of uncertainty. And so it's kind of the same drill, wouldn't you say, Trace, in terms of what we're feeling right now experientially in this moment, and what we've been talking about on this show with our peeps in terms of where we got to go in our leadership development for the future of work.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what you're experiencing over there in your leadership lane right about now. Are you resonating with any of what I just talked about?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling like, I don't know, we talk about this, you and I personally, but the eclipse season, and there's a lot of energy moving right now, and I feel it, as an empath, and I'm also Scorpio, so I can really, really, really feel the changes. We also have all the kids, the kids are going back to school. There's lots of changes. We're going into Q4. People are coming off summer holidays. Some of us don't rest as much as we should in the summer, and we're coming back, trying to keep up. For me, I feel like it's just really important right now, when we talk about conscious leadership. It's just kind of like getting quiet and setting intentions. That's where I'm at. I'm just kind of like, and I want to talk about your post, but that's kind of where I'm kind of going, is like, what is it that I need and want over the next few months? And I really feel it. Again, if I talk about the eclipse and the energy moving, it's like, I need to clean up some stuff, and I got new stuff coming in fast, and I got to be open to those possibilities. So how do I get myself in a position where I can hear it, listen, and be prepared for whatever's going to show up for me? And so the way I'm kind of like feeling is like really exhausted, although I know I need to do some self-care and some rest. And I think everybody is kind of, I'm feeling that at work with everybody. It's like people are exhausted. There's a lot going on. So I'm trying to like step away, and really, I know that's one of my intentions, is to actually do some recovery for myself, so that I can be resourceful when I'm in my leadership every day and being able to help my people, right? Seeing lots of changes, everywhere in the politics. We're seeing it, at work with, changes in the company and all that kind of good stuff, which is, all happening for us, but always difficult to see that. So, being able to be very intentional, quiet, and listen, and actually get some recovery so that I can be grounded and show up for my people, is what I'm trying to really kind of zone in the next few weeks, so that I am up and running for the rest of the year, because we know it's going to be heavy, it's going to be busy. So for me, that's where I'm kind of like at right now, is that, that self recovery is going to be super important. I'm really trying to teach my my people that, to create some boundaries, take some time away, and really kind of, choose what I want to expose myself to and what I want to digest and take in. Because I know you know that, and we're all guilty of scrolling all the time. Not all the time, but I do take some time to scroll. But being able to pick and choose what I want to actually bring into my space and into my energy is really, really important right now, because there's a lot of stuff happening out there. And I'm trying to be very mindful and very clear on what I let in and what I don't. And that's kind of helping me get really grounded around what I need so that I can actually navigate Q4 as it's coming up really fast. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and trying to help my people see the possibilities. I see this as like an opportunity. I always try to look at this as, like we talked about, it's happening for us, not against us. And being the way I'm kind of feeling right now is just trusting the process, and trying to see the possibilities that are coming up and what is possible, and try to like play with that as we're working through this. And I think it's really hard for some people as we're navigating uncertainty in the workplace right now. But me showing up in that state for them, I think is really important to help them step into their playful kind of, era where they can actually start seeing possibilities for themselves.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And that's something that the Navy SEALs actually use in their training camp, because they need to learn how to trust the down gear, right? Like in order for us to have max capacity as leaders, we have to balance that upregulated state with the downregulated state. This is how we stay adaptive and resilient and make sure we actually have the resources to create or co-create, right? Yeah, I think that's where we want to start, is just understanding how consciousness is the portal to the possibilities, the possibility thinking, like all of that we know has to happen through the doorway of consciousness. Because if we're not grounded, present and available, right, to that which is in front of us, then we can't start to process our way through all the intensity that we're feeling in the ethers as empathic leaders, right? It's our superpower that we're so sensitive to the ethers and our people's experience and our kids' experience. But everything that you just laid out there is a lot. And so, left to its own devices, the brain is going to find that very overwhelming. That amount of change in such a short amount of time, hence the intensity that we're all feeling as sensitive, empathic leaders right about now. And it's so important for us to be present and available to that. That's what we've been talking about as a theme all summer, right? Consciousness is awareness. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So we have to be available to that which is coming through the door of our energy, and understand that if we're stuck in that upregulated sympathetic overdrive known as stress, the stress response, which gets triggered by all of that change and uncertainty and overwhelm, then we can't be creative. We can only be reactive based on, right? Like resting on our laurels, we said, I think a couple of weeks ago on this show. So I think that's something that we definitely are resonating on. And that's why we wanted to bring our practices to our peeps right about now, because I think it's really, really, I've been back in these leadership trenches all week, and it's hitting all my leaders in the same way. They're all coming through the door in the upregulated state, right? But if we don't understand why that is, then we are not going to be able to be responsive to everything that's coming our way in such an accelerated rate. So yeah, I think this is where it starts, is in our practices, right? We say that the model carries the most weight. Our people are looking at us to know how to feel, both on the home front and the work front right about now. So our energy carries a lot of weight in terms of our ripple effect. So I think that's where we're trying to compel our folks to be right about now. And we're going to talk about my post in a minute, but that's why I feel so called to curate a conscious coach's corner for our peeps, because it's the hardest thing in the world for high achievers to give themselves permission to gear down.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel safe when you got all that coming at you that you're responsible for. It doesn't feel safe to choose self-responsibility like that, does it?
No.
But we have to make that choice consciously, because if we don't, we're going to be reactive, not responsible. and that,
Mhm.
and that's where our power lies. That's where our agency lies. That's again where our creative capacity is going to open up to even be able to see those possibilities that are showing up for us.
Mhm. I love that. Why don't we go into that a little bit about your post? Why don't we talk a
Yeah.
little bit about what are you doing in
Mm-hmm.
that space, right? To help you kind of, deregulate, get grounded, and what can we share with our listeners that could be helpful for them when we talk about conscious leadership?
Well, I think I started there with the whole concept of getting grounded, because that
Mhm.
really, to me, is the starting point. It's like the entry point. I'm not even going to be able to process my way through any of what I just described if I'm not consciously at the helm. And again, I want to put emphasis on the fact that high achievers, it doesn't feel safe to gear down. They don't want to give themselves permission to even do that. So that's
Mhm.
why I like to unpack all of the neuroscience, right? In terms of our cognitive capacity and how that impacts our decision-making process, our creative capacities, our ability to see the possibilities. But again, all of that 93% of communication to our kids and our people that is completely nonverbal, right? Which is coming from the emotions that are triggered by the amygdala when we're overwhelmed and stressed, right? Because all of that is energy and motion. And that is literally most of what is being communicated to our folks, right? But yeah, I was working with a client yesterday and I gave him the quote, you speed up by slowing down, or slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And that's
Mm.
something that the Navy SEALs actually use in their training camp, because they need to learn how to trust the down gear, right? Like in order for us to have max capacity as leaders, we have to balance that upregulated state with the downregulated state. This is how we stay adaptive and resilient and make sure we actually have the resources to create or co-create, right? So yeah, I was just talking about how for me, it's I'm just as sensitive as the rest of us. I'm definitely feeling the intensity upregulating me right about now. And so when I do, I have a practice where I take myself outside, because it's the quickest and easiest way when you feel overwhelmed to trip the switch on what's known as the parasympathetic response. That's the down regulation that you were referring to a second ago. That's rest and digest, right? Versus fight or flight of our anxiety and the sympathetic state of the nervous system. But where we get down regulated into a parasympathetic response, that's also where we can start to cognitively open up shop, right? And that's, to me, what I need in order to gain a sense of clarity in terms of not just one aspect of what I'm dealing with, right? But kind of like Matt was talking about, that holistic perspective of an understanding of what's going on inside of me, what's going on around me, and in terms of my people, my kid, and then what is going on in this world contextually right now that might be adding to that equation, like the lunar eclipse you just mentioned.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I think getting out into nature is just such a quick and easy hack way into that. Putting my bare feet on the ground, I think, is what I was talking about in that post,
Mhm.
right? Is it's like, yeah, it's like one of the ways that I can be fully present and aware of what actually is going on in my body versus me being trapped in the stories of my mind, my parts, my fight or flight.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that's like for sure, I think one that gets undervalued.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like such a no-brainer, obvious thing. But for high achievers, believe it or not, it is absolutely something I need to require and hold them accountable to before we can
Mhm.
do anything else high level, before we can even see why these opportunities for growth are showing up for us and how to co-create with them. We have to work on the state. That quality of state we talked about when we were riffing on NLP is what drives the quality of results. And Matt also talked about this on our show, didn't he? It's not what we do, it's how we do it. And so if I really am serious about sustainability, resilience, adaptability, but also really making sure that I govern the highest quality decisions, behaviors, and thus results, then I need to make sure I check myself before I wreck myself. I loved it when Dan used that quote from Gabrielle Bernstein. It's one I use myself in my own lane, because that's what the power state's all about, right? Is like, if we don't understand that this is why emotional intelligence is rated the #1 leadership skill of them all by now, let me remind us. that state that we're in is everything in terms of predicting the probability of what we're going to be able to co-create in terms of the possibilities and opportunities for growth. Yes, even when we're in the storm, right? The storm of the intensity of what energy is going on around us. I think that's where it starts, right? It starts with stepping to the helm consciously and self-responsibility so we can become powerfully responsible, because when we're actually in tune to what we're feeling, that's when we can make new choice. That's when we can work with what it is that we're actually feeling so that we can actually affect change on it. And to me, I don't want to talk anything higher level strategy until we make sure we're coming from the right orientation as a conscious leader. How about you? What are you using in your lane right about now to manage all of that? Because I know you're feeling all of it in terms of
I mean, I'm I'm a big believer in meditation, and I think you taught me a lot of that, years ago. And it's a big practice that I really count on in terms of getting myself very clear on where I am, how I'm feeling, so that I can connect deeper to myself and where I need to do some work, or how I'm going to show up, right? And I think, it takes time, and you have to prioritize it. But if I don't do that, I can feel I get very
depleted.
Depleted, but also like scattered. And emotionally deregulated, where I'm very up and down very quickly in terms of my emotions, and my energy is everywhere. And I know when I'm like that, and it's not good. And what happens is that I can get affected by a lot. No matter, littlest thing can destabilize me, because I'm not grounded. And that's how I get there, is through just being still and quiet, so that I can just go inwards and just get clear why I'm here, who I am, what's important, and what do I want to do next. Because if I don't have that, then I'm feels like, I used to describe it as it feels like electricity going through me if I'm not. It's like literally get grounded. I just feel like fluttering, like I'm just fluttering everywhere, right? And I find like right now is just such an important time, more than ever. It's really important to be sitting still. Like I just feel lots of stuff right now. It's just very, very fast and big energies coming through. So and it's, there's the eclipse, but there's also lots of things happening in the world. So there's lots of things to be considering, and I would say that, as we're ramping up for the rest of the year, it's really important that people, kind of sit back and kind of really get clear on who they want to be and what they're going to show up for, because there's lots to do. I have a feeling things are going to change very quickly over the next few months. And I don't mean personally, like, I think it's just the world is going to,
I'm feeling that too.
right? It's like, I don't know what it is yet, but when we talk about conscious leadership, it's like, every choice I make is so important and will give us an outcome that's different than a different choice I would make. So I'm just trying to make the best decision I can every day. And as a leader, I think it's so important for us to be at the top of our game right now because our people need that. Our people are struggling. It's really tough. And, as empaths, it's hard for us to kind of not let everybody's energy kind of sway us in the way that we show up. So that groundness and that, being very clear on how I want to show up every day is like a practice that I got to keep very clear, near and dear to my heart if I want to stay authentic to myself. So I would say that that's probably my number one thing. And then what I'm really feeling for myself is like the rest. I need to step away and just kind of disconnect for a bit and, sleep and, eat well and take nice long walks and just, be in my own energy, which is not always easy as a mom and as a wife and all that stuff, right? So we have to show up for a lot of that stuff for everybody. But I feel like that's really calling me for the next few weeks in terms of what I need to do so that I can really be where I need to be to take us through the rest of the year. Because I think it's going to be a little bit heavy. Not a bad heavy, just heavy. We need to be there, right? We need to show up for that process because there's something there at the end of that. And we need to like stay true to that, right? And trust that there's lots of good stuff. And anyway, as leaders, you don't get to walk away. That's why you're a leader. So
Yeah, and I feel like that's the dangers of allowing what's going on outside of us to take control of what's happening inside of us, right? Is like we do have a responsibility to ourselves and to our people and to our world navigating all this change. But yeah, like how do we do that if we're leading ourselves from a space and place of fear? Talked about how if we're in high fear, it eradicates trust. If we're in high fear, low trust inside of us, it creates a ton of insecurity. And that we know is going to disengage our kids and disengage our people. If they're looking at us to know how to feel and we look scared and we're like running around scurrying like a chicken with our head cut off, we're going to lose influence. We're not going to have the ability or capacity or privilege of actually leading ourselves and our people to this next evolution in our journey, right? I think it's part of how we make sure that we protect that privilege.
And I think it also, just to make it that tie back, because we've talked about this too, right? It's around self-leadership. That is what we're talking about is the starting point, which is self, right? And that's like taking care of self, knowing that I need that so that I can function and be my best version of myself. And if I don't do that, I know what the other outcome is. Not good. Fear, scared, destabilized, emotional, not rational. So that's not an option as a leader. In my mind, it's not an option I like to give myself. So what needs to happen for that not to happen is what I need to get clear on. And that I know needs to be with starting with here, self, and getting clear and disconnecting and having that space so that you can get deeper and get rested so that you can show up for everybody else. But it all comes back to what we've been talking about, which is starting with the self. It's not anything to do with the outside. The outside piece is like deciding what you take in and what you don't. For me, some of it's good, may resonate, a lot of it not so good. Therefore,
Boundaries up.
Don't let it in, right? But that's a choice. Again, coming back to conscious leadership, those are decisions that you make. If you decide to sit and scroll for 2 hours and you let everything into, and you let all that information come in, I mean, it's a choice, right? But you may not feel super great after it, where I try to like just block some of that stuff and not get I try to time myself so that I can be conscious of like, okay, that's enough.
Limitations.
Yeah, boundaries and limitations around that so that I can get back to what I need to do because I know that that's got to be with self so that I can do the work I need to do and be clear so that I can go forward. But it's about decisions, right? It comes back to self and making choices.
Consciously.
Consciously for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's why we want to keep coming back to that word consciously making
Yeah.
choice, right? Because I think we're still making choices if we get triggered into stress and we fly out the front door chasing our tails. It's just that we're not at the helm with those choices. Our amygdala is leading us.
Hmm.
And who the heck wants to live like that? And who the heck wants to follow a leader like that? Again, it comes back to our ability to impact and influence,
Hmm.
right? But I think what we're talking about too as empathic leaders is the reality that we are consciously choosing to curate, what we invest our energy in. But there's also things as an empathic leader that are coming into us without our knowing, right? Like this is part of our superpowers is that we can really absorb other people's energy and not even do that consciously, just do it intuitively.
Hmm.
And so, if that is the case, that we're picking up on all of this, then we have to make a conscious choice to go and get super duper quiet and present and inward so we can understand what energy is this? Is this my energy? Is this their energy? Is this useful energy? All the things we ask when we're leading our team meetings, is like, is this working for us? Is this not working for us? How the heck can we discern any of that if we're not actually able to get up in the box and observe what is in our energy?
Hmm.
And that to me is why I believe that these are going to become the table stakes for us as leaders. I don't know how, because it's not going to slow down. That's reality. Okay. This is not just September, sending the kids back Q4. We're talking about how this acceleration is going to be like what we all got to get used to in terms of, the ethers in the world and how we're orienting in it. So I think that, yeah, we want to make sure that we're taking the lead in terms of what energy, again, not what we do, but how we do it. What
Hmm.
energy is actually going to be at that table when we have to sit down and we have to really, make those important decisions, yes, but also lead our people through all of that when they don't know how to lead themselves for the most part. So I think this is obviously why I'm talking about this in September, but it's why I want to keep talking about conscious leadership through this whole Conscious Coaches Corner concept that I came up with, is because,
Hmm.
yeah, there's many different ways to do that. Like not everybody can just sit there and put their bare feet on the ground and start to meditate and get really deeply inward and calm. But please believe that is not the only way to get grounded. And getting grounded, again, as an empathic leader, we talked about this with the feedback, is requisite. We have to make sure we stay grounded in our empathy,
Hmm.
right? But we can do that in the ways that you describe in terms of you like to be more active and you like to go for your walks. I like to do that too sometimes.
Hmm.
But yeah, like breath work also does the job. I like to utilize that at my desk.
Yoga.
My yoga definitely is the way that I do that in the morning time to make sure that I'm really like grounded and present and available to what is in front of me that day.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think other ways of practicing deeper forms of self-care, active recovery. I always talk about this on the show. I love my cold dips,
Yeah.
saunas, and like
Yeah.
it's like the athlete in me that really likes to kind of go deep when I have the opportunity to practice that active recovery. Is there anything else that you didn't mention that you'd like to offer our folks before we say adieu?
I think those are like the ones that, I think there's also, I was thinking those are the ones that come to mind for me that are most, but I know that there's other people that practice different methods to be able to ground. And like you said, breath work is really, really popular now too, as well. And some people, it might be even just like being with self, right? Just being alone and reading a book could be a way that,
Mm-hmm.
you can ground. And I think there's not one way for everybody, and everybody needs to explore
Mm-hmm.
what works for them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's tons of like literature on, how to get grounded, and you can try to figure that out what best works for you, because like you said, what we do may not work for some other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's not one way to do it. And I think whatever you're feeling when you feel calm, you know, regulated and connected, that is what you've done. And whatever that is for you, that's great. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to look like whatever we describe it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine some people just hugging their children would bring them to a grounded, right? I think it just depends on who you are and what,
Mm-hmm.
what grounds you, but try to
Mm-hmm.
take it, note of how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to help you just, kind of discover what works best for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I have a lot of clients who just even jumping in a bubble bath as a
Yeah,
nightly
like,
ritual, and lighting some candles and like boom,
yeah,
that's their go-to
yeah,
when they've had a really
yeah,
stressful day. But I think that's what we also are trying to convey is that this is not stock photography. Conscious leadership is about knowing thyself.
yeah,
And that means you get to know thyself and which practices work for thyself and thyself's nervous system. But
exactly.
please know that we live in the information era and it is not hard this day and age to go find lots of resources in terms of the multitude of
Mhm.
different options available to us in terms of how to get grounded.
Right.
Anything else you'd like to leave our folks with today?
No, I think that was good. I think one of the things that you talked about, we'll have to dig into one of the shows, is emotional
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. We didn't really go into that yet, so I would like to unpack that a little bit with you on maybe another riff,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's a very, very important, critical skill as a leader. And I think it's talked about a lot, but it's not taught a lot, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard to teach.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some time, and you have to get serious, and you have to dig deep. And I think that's a super important, like you said, it's a number one skill that we need, and that is number one skill in successful leaders. We should dig into that maybe on the next riff.
I
Yeah.
think that's wonderful tee up for what's up next on deck. I think where I always start in my practice with leaders is through emotional awareness. That's
Mhm.
why we're talking about conscious leadership as the portal of possibility and where the new choice lives. But we can't change what we don't acknowledge exists. We have to start with the awareness of what is happening in our nervous system, right? Because that's where the emotions flow from brain to body and the way that it communicates with one another. And I think that's something we should definitely go deeper on. But I think that's the place we want to land the plane is the starting point to building your emotional intelligence in your self leadership. I know we're so used to this as empathic leaders to calibrate how the room is feeling so we can show up to what it is that we can sense that they need.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm trying to call our awareness to the inside a little bit to balance out those scales because I know there's a lot presenting in front of us in terms of people's needs and
Mhm.
certainly the needs unmet caused by all of
Mhm.
this intensity. So the model carries the most weight. It starts in our self leadership. It starts with awareness. And that's what we're going to leave you with to go out these locker room doors and practice because Tracey's right. It's not an intellectual exercise, folks. We can't think our way into a grounded state. We can't think our way into isolating and identifying what it is that we're actually feeling and why. We actually have to step into that experientially. We have to go inside, calm the nervous system and the monkey mind so that we can even put our finger on that pulse. And that's what we're calling on all of you to go get into your conscious corner with so that you can start to apply this as a daily practice. And just even for 7 days
Mm.
of tracking that pulse and noticing what starts to happen in your day when you start by getting grounded is going to make the case from a proof and evidence standpoint to want to go through that next door into understanding the intelligent choice that is made possible through that portal of consciousness.
Mhm.
So we will go there when we have another me and you riff, okay? And I think for all of you out there listening right now, this is us with our finger on your pulse, but we want to hear from you because we're in the year of co-creation and we want to know if this is an accurate read. We want to know how you're feeling with the intensities of change that are in the ethers. We want to know what practices you're utilizing or working with, or If there's some aspect of what's going on right now in your leadership lane that you need support and resource in, we want your feedback so that we can make sure we're truly being responsive to your needs at this moment of time. For all other inquiries in regards to any of this conscious leadership coaching or leadership development programs, you can find all that information over at the website elitehighperformance.com. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out the locker room doors today. Your highest potential is our passion, and we are so fired up, right, Trace, to be helping our people shoulder to shoulder to unleash that together. We'll see you guys back here next week.